So this week I kind of wanted to go over, everything is piggybacking off of, and we'll get into other subjects, but continuing to kind of piggyback off of how couples can communicate a little bit better. I came across this story, and I don't even remember the story at this point because I read the story several days ago. But I had thought it was a woman who didn't feel very kind of valued and attracted to by her husband, and she kind of felt like maybe he was slipping away or something like that. Oh, that's what it was. Now I remember. Now I jog my memory. It's she was saw a video online, and she had it was like people rating each other. Um, Now, back in the day, by the way, we used to have a website called Hot or Not, where you'd post a picture of yourself. This was early 2000s, and you'd post a picture of yourself, and people would rate it on a scale of 1 to 10. So it was kind of like a thing like that, I guess. It wasn't a website, but it was like a post or a thread or something. And she said, "Oh, I don't really have the courage to do something like that. I envy some of these, especially some of these women." Who allow just like hundreds and even thousands of people, and most of them are like trashing on them intentionally as like a joke. And she's like, "Yeah, I don't think I can do that even as a joke." And the husband had told her, and this is per her story, the husband had told her that, well, you don't need those people to rate you. I'll rate you. And she's like, "Oh, great." She is thinking he's going to rate her something like, "Oh, you're 10 and you're the most beautiful woman to me," and yada, yada, yada. This guy rates her a 6. He's like, looks her up and down, she says, and he rated her a 6. And it's not a joke or something, like, a prank video or something. And she says it completely just destroyed her. And she couldn't believe that he had said that. And she says, "I realize I'm not actually a 10, and I'm not actually the hottest woman in the world. And, I'm not actually these things." She says, "But I thought my husband, after, I think they'd been married like 4 or 5 years and together like 5 or 6." She says, "After my husband, after being together for roughly about 5 years, I thought he would find me more attractive." And she said her self-esteem was already kind of, shaky. And, it just kind of sent her a little bit more over. And now she's in her head and thinking that, her husband doesn't find her attractive. So I was thinking, say, well, we could talk about, so I'm going to start off talking about self-esteem with a spouse. I've seen couples talk about, "It's not my job," and maybe we've even had this conversation at some points. "It's not my job to make you feel good." And if I've ever said that, I know now that that's not correct, because it's my job to help build your self-esteem, because we're, again, like we had mentioned before in like the last video, we're best friends, we're partners, we're teammates for life. And it is my job to back you up. It is my job to help build your self-esteem. It is my job to help, create a strong foundation mentally, emotionally, and even physically for you.
I think you and I went through a lot of back and forth in that from both perspectives over the last few years. Um, I remember, especially in the last probably 2, 3 years, there was a big struggle back and forth because way back in the day when we first started dating, there was the smacking of the butts and well, you were smacking my butt, and I was like, and I remember way back when I was like, why is he always smacking my butt? Like, what's going on? But you see the ongoing joke online of like the guy kind of walks by and stops smacking the girl's butt. And if there was like a secret camera, you'd kind of see this like look of
Now, what are you
like
doing? Why aren't you? It's
yeah,
like, I've seen videos like that. The husband walks by and does it, and she gives him like a dirty look, or,
yeah,
says something, and he has to backtrack and he has to do it. It's that
yeah.
sign of like, "Hey, you didn't," it's an outward representation. It's like, well, what are you doing? You're supposed to find me sexy, like, always. So you're supposed to walk by and do it. So now I think I see some videos where I've seen guys get a little carried away and like really lay into it. I'm like, that's not
Ouch.
that's your wife or your girlfriend. That's not your bro. What are you doing? Save that for the gym. Save that for sparring or something.
But
That's my opinion, though.
I would say that one of the things that started becoming the big back and forth is, by this point in time, we had our daughter and our then our youngest, our son, and my body had changed. My body really didn't change much between the first and the second one, but by the third one, because he was giant, I had started changing. And, I hit, my 30s and I wasn't feeling too cute anymore. And I wasn't feeling like your young hot wife anymore. And there was this, the animosity, that undertone from having our surprise kid and all of this other life just had started happening. And I remember at one point in time, I had looked at you and was like, I have no self-esteem. I don't find myself attractive anymore. And you looked at me straight face and you're like, well, that's your problem. You need to find yourself. You need to be happy with yourself. That's not my job to do it. And I remember that I was like, I was already at a low, and that kind of dropped me even lower, because it was like my husband can't even verbalize that he finds me attractive. And that's kind of, I think, really where the I could see the undertone of our relationship was kind of on the rocks, because at no point in time in the prior period um had you not been willing to just throw something at me as a compliment. Like, um that was when the intimacy started growing more and more weary and started becoming more and more of an issue. And then I could see that the compliments were going less and less and less. And then if I would fish for a compliment, or I would ask you for a compliment, it was almost like a condescending, like, why do I care? Like, you're, it's not that, what was it? You started quoting it's not the dress that makes you fat. It's the fat that makes you look fat, from
From
Married with
Married with
Children.
Children, yeah, Al Bundy and Peg walks down. It's like, Al, do you think this dress makes you look fat? No, Peg. The it's something like, yeah, it's like, it's not the dress that makes you look fat, it's the fat that makes you look fat.
And the other part of that is, while I could laugh it off because I grew up with Married with Children, it is what it is. There was an undertone of, well, the joke, but there's no love back to it, or no affection. It did dig a little bit. But I would say also, on the flip side, is you weren't allowing me to compliment you.
Yeah.
There was a block of, you obviously, you aren't the, shredded guy that I started dating, when you were 13 years ago. But I still find you seriously attractive, and you wouldn't allow me to compliment you because you felt you weren't what you wanted to be.
Yeah. That can go, it's how to like unpack that, can go like both ways. I mean, obviously, thinking like that, mentality like that, is probably along the lines more of the way a woman would think and feel. um which is, I don't, it's based off of the physicality and how attractive I am, like you were saying with, the modeling, and I'm not, built like this anymore. It's like, well, for me, it's the same thing, because ever since high school, when I found weight training and I started reading like bodybuilding magazines, and I started figuring out how to diet and how to lift and how to get bigger, and how to build this and build that and do this and do that. And yeah, I mean, when we got together, I was 34, and I was still walking around chiseled, 8% body fat normally. I exercised 3 4 hours a day, 6 days a week, because at the time I was also fight training. And it's not so much that I was a vain person, but when you literally go from, and I literally went from high school all the way, 17-ish, all the way, an additional 17 years looking like a fitness model. And then all of a sudden, within a few months to a year of that career kind of going by the wayside, and then turning into a stay-at-home dad, and then just gaining that first 10 pounds was hard for me.
Mm-hmm.
And over the years, it's gotten worse and worse and worse. And then, now you're not training as hard because you don't have that motivation. When you have, even though you don't have a fight lined up, when you have that fight, like, okay, I want to take a fight by the end of this year or something like that, or by summer, because we're at the beginning of the year. you have it in your head, okay, I have a purpose to wake up and do that. When you're just training for physical health, like being in athletics, there was always a reason. There was always a season for training. And then when you retire, and you stop training or you stop competing, it's like, okay, I don't really have to get up and do this tomorrow.
Yeah.
So you don't. But in the beginning, you still have that appetite. I mean, I was consuming between 4,500 and 5,000 calories a day.
I remember I would cook for you when you'd come visit.
Yeah.
Eat
And
a whole
yeah,
pack of chicken.
whole pack of chicken with sides and everything. I could eat that down. It's like, I'm kind of still hungry actually. So yeah, when you're that way, for me personally, it was hard. I hated the way I felt.
Yeah.
So because I didn't feel like myself, because that's what I had known. I had just known athletics ever since like high school, and then going into adulthood. I had known athletics and being in shape and basically being good looking, and yet I didn't know how to be normal, I guess. And I'm not trying to sound egotistical and arrogant, but I didn't know how not to be that guy that I was. And now I had to be that guy. And it was very difficult for me. So because my self-esteem and my self-worth took a hit, I wasn't capable of any longer of doing it for anybody else.
Yeah.
So it became difficult. And then, it kind of is, unfortunately, that whole kick the dog. And I see couples do this. They feel like crap for whatever reason, and then they go home and they take it out on their like significant other. And then you get the real messed up people that do it to their kids. And that's, I mean, not that like, you shouldn't be doing it to a spouse either. I don't know, but it's like if you came home and you were negative towards me, I could take that. Where if you were like a nasty like mom or wife or something like that, and you took it out on the kids, I'd probably be more offended. Like, no, you can attack me and that's fine, but you leave the kids alone, type thing. So, anyways, because I couldn't, I didn't feel good about myself. I didn't care if you felt good about yourself. So,
Well, I
but
think what you also described it as was because you felt disgusting that you you felt disgusting, so you didn't want my compliment because you thought it was fake. And one thing we've come to terms with now is like you were, what, 190 pounds walking around when you first got together, and now you've gotten bigger, but it's like visually more appealing to me. Like you are more attractive to me than you were, 13 years ago. And you've said the same thing about me, is like, I was 115 pounds. I'm not 115 pounds anymore. I'm not a model anymore. But 3 kids later, my hips have expanded. My figure is more hourglass than it used to be. And while I don't feel as attractive, I've nursed 3 kids. I've, had 3 kids. I'm not as good looking as I feel. You're gonna say I'm a 10 because I'm your 10 and because you've helped create this body, kind of thing.
yeah, and that's so um I see this with other couples. They it how to word this? They struggle finding something to compliment their spouse about. I see it a lot when the couple has like their first kid,
Mm-hmm.
and then all of a sudden her body changes, and maybe they're in their 20s or even late 20s, early 30s, and they didn't. It's not that they didn't realize, but especially with the guys, they kind of knew their wife's body was going to change, but maybe they thought it was going to go back, or they didn't really realize, like, oh yeah, it's like she's not the same anymore. She's different. And sometimes they can't handle that, if they've been together for a while, and it's like he's used to looking at her one way and he was attracted to her one way. He doesn't know how to be attracted to her this new way. And it can play with the woman's self-esteem. It's like, well, now I don't feel this, and now I'm going through postpartum because I just wrecked my body for an entire year to create
Physically
this
and
child,
emotionally.
Yeah. And now I'm going through the healing process, but there's still wear and tear on the body, especially if she's nursing, and then the lack of sleep that she's going through,
C-sections.
C-sections. Well, that can vary.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen. Some women can bounce back faster from a
Mm-hmm.
C-section than a natural birth, and then vice versa. It just depends on the woman. I've heard a lot of stories over the years with my students, with my martial arts studios. I've heard different stories by different women, so that can vary, I guess. But yeah, but the woman's body is still going through changes for
Mm-hmm.
that next year to 2 years. And if the woman is nursing, one of the things that the guys aren't realizing, I guess, and maybe the woman doesn't either, I don't know, but anything that woman consumes, food, water, vitamins, minerals, supplements, anything like that, is getting processed through her body and then getting pushed right back out to the kid. And that creates a wear and tear on her body.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that kid, especially the first few months, again, if he's nursing, she's nursing, um, sleepless nights. I mean, how many times with our kids, um, because we would have the crib for the first few months at least. We just put the crib in our room. It was so much easier than having to do the parents who do the monitors and all that stuff. I can't sleep with that crap on. It's easier just to get up, walk 10 feet, and zombie walk and nurse a kid or rock a kid or go get a bottle or something,
Yeah.
something like that. So, but yeah, she's still changing, and maybe the guy can't. He hasn't accepted that yet, and he doesn't know how to. So it's a possibility.
I would say that also it was even slightly easier with us. I can't say for other people because I was so it was easier for me to co-sleep than it was to have the babies in the crib. And I know there's a taboo nowadays about co-sleeping, but I actually slept worse with the baby in the crib because I was constantly waking up to make sure the baby was breathing versus how many times the baby was able to sleep right next to my face. And I was you couldn't do it because you slept harder than I did, or you would sleep even crappier. But I was able to sleep listening to that baby's breath, and I would just sleep in like a cuddle position.
Yeah. So, well, there's levels of the co-sleeping that I've
Mm-hmm.
seen. And I think what we were doing for co-sleeping, everybody thinks their way is the best freaking way, even though it's like, there's more than one way to skin a cat. So with the co-sleeping, the difference is we still had boundaries.
Yeah.
We still tried to have time.
Yeah.
We still tried to have intimate time. And you just have to time it out.
Yeah.
You have to time it to where it's like, okay, fed, changed, sleeping, go time, that type of thing. And then it's like, all right, we got our time in. And then, an hour later, it's like, oh, well, the child's up anyway. So we got that time in real quick. But that's part of it. And that's something also I see new dads struggling with. They have a tendency, especially I'm seeing it with the younger generation.
Yeah.
The guys who are, say, 30 and under are really struggling. And I'm not trying to throw dudes under the bus, um, but I am seeing it more with guys than with girls. But there is an equal part with women as well. So I'm seeing two things, which is with guys, they're not understanding, or they're not as empathetic to the woman just delivered a child.
Mm-hmm.
And not only that, it's like, the woman just delivered your child, man. Go enjoy your kid. And it's like, yeah, but what about me? It's been a month. It's like, yeah,
And
wait another month. I don't know what to tell you. Or ask nicely if she can help you out with some other way. It's like, what are you doing? It's like you're sitting here. It's like, yeah, but it's like, shut up, boy. You're kind of being a dick right now. Because I'll be honest. It's like, I don't know. I think about it. It's like, I was, with all the issues that we ever had, that was one thing that I never did to you.
yeah.
That's the one thing I will compliment myself on. I was never selfish in that respect, understanding that your body is going to take as long as your body needs to heal. But I also had faith in you, again, even amidst all the issues that we've had over the years, that you weren't holding out intentionally. And that's one of the things that I have seen on the play devil's advocate on the reverse side for women, which is guys are being respectful and they're being patient and they're trying to enjoy the new dad and help out the mom as much as possible. But then the wife is starting to like, well, I just don't want to. And one of the things I have seen is women, because it can happen, is women in fear of getting pregnant again immediately. Like they just gave birth and like, well, I know what leads to the pregnancy and I don't want to jump right back into that because I don't want to get pregnant again and end up with Irish twins. Like,
Well, I did have that after Zach, you and I discussed that because there was a very real scare with Zach being the surprise that he was of having another one because I really didn't want to have any kids after my 30s. And I just was really scared. But I want to add one other caveat to that is I would say after my first pregnancy, I was not scared of getting pregnant again. I was scared of getting back on the what's the term? Backing back on the wagon, whatever the term is. But
I'm not sure where you're going with this.
I was scared of back in the saddle. That's the term I was trying to say. But I was
Whose saddle?
any saddle. No, I was.
Like what was that song? What was that song back in the early 2000s? Like Ride My Pony?
Yes.
That saddle?
Save a horse, ride a cowboy. Anyways.
Not even what I'm talking about. That's a country song. I'm talking about like a hip hop song.
Oh, I don't know. Anyways. Just go about our day.
Okay, so you're losing me. You're losing me.
So what I was getting at was with the first pregnancy, I was more nervous with completing the act again. I had
having sex again.
I had stitches.
You can say sex. It's not a bad word, and we're
whatever.
we're married, so it's okay.
So I had stitches after the first one, and I was very nervous about going back into it again because it was very tender, very sore. And when you are sitting here with your first pregnancy and obviously with my prior relationship is I was very nervous because things were new and they were tender and they were sore. And there was a very big nervousness that I was gonna get into the mood of it and gonna start the act and everything like that, and then I was gonna be able to fail. So I think with that, it was really hard at the time because I didn't have the communication. I didn't have that ability to relay that because I was just nervous that I was going to upset the other person. And I think I've read online a lot of other women that end up having that issue that have episiotomies or stitches or anything like that, and there is a damage, there is scar tissue, there is other things, and I hear a lot of these people they don't know how to start back again. They don't know how to go down that route, and they have this utter fear that it's going to be painful, but they don't know how to relay it to their partners in a healthy way without the partners kind of getting upset or irritated or wound or whatever, understanding that you're almost kind of like a virgin again, that the stuff's all nice and tight down there and you're nervous about it.
So with us over the course of this last year, really trying to develop our communication between each other, it's interesting the 2020 hindsights, where now it's a lot easier. We're so open and close, to where we just don't have any reservations about letting the other person know what's going on.
Yeah.
So if we were to have another kid and your body was healing a certain way at a certain time frame, and let's say for me it's been 2 months, and it's like, hey, it's been 2 months. It's like I need you to do some magic womanly stuff and make things go. Yeah, there you go. Wave your magic wand, and it's that easy. And I
think
see
from
so
the
many
woman perspective for that, instead of like, hey, I need your help, it's just more like, hey, what's going on? What is your delay? Is there anything that I can do to help?
Sure.
Kind of thing, instead of the man coming at the woman saying, it's been 2 months, I need some help here. You could also put it on the woman and be like, hey, how can we help this along? Is there any hesitations? Are you having issues? Keeping that line of communication, because I know, not that you and I are like this, but I could see from the one perspective is like, I just birthed a baby and you're complaining that it's only been 2 months. Like, I literally just housed a baby for 9 months and now my vagina is recuperating and you're complaining about 2 months. So I could see also from both sides as well.
And inside my head, I thought exactly what you just said. I just didn't verbalize it. So I didn't mean to come across like all douchey and everything. Like, hey, service me. It wasn't
I
like
would
that.
like help.
Yeah, it was more like, it should have already been communicated
Yeah.
that he knows what she's going through. Um, uh, and understands, because she's like, oh man, I feel this today, or I feel that today, or like you said, you had stitches and episiotomies, and if they had a C-section or something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, that communication really needs to be there. It really needs to be open. It's like, man, it's that 2020 hindsight, and I look at us now compared to I look at us back then, and it's like, what the hell were we afraid of? Like, we were like nervous to talk to each other, like not even nervous, but why didn't we talk to each other? That's so. I think of it now, and I'm like, what the hell were we? What was our fucking problem? We didn't talk to each other. Why the hell didn't we talk to each other? I see couples now, and I talk to my friends or something like that as well, or go to a marriage group or and listen to couples like, well, she and he and this and that, and it's like, have you guys talked about it? Well, no, because and there's what's all the tension for? It's just open up and talk to each other. It's like, okay, well, shut up, let me talk, and then you can put a timer on your phone, and then okay, timer's up. I'm done. Now it's your turn, timer, and I shut up, and it was just listen and talk, and eventually it turns into a conversation. And so many people are just not doing that. They're like we mentioned in the last episode, getting inside their heads, and they're creating this scenario and the story that's not even happening. And if they would just go, it's like, hey, I feel this way and I think this way. And you're like, I kind of felt that way, or I felt the opposite, or it's.
I found it interesting because, you look back at how many years we've been together, and you and I have always been open in the aspect of parenting, childbirth. There's never been a time when it came to pregnancy or after pregnancy or, pumping, that there was never a time I felt I couldn't talk to you about that. But when it came into the bed space, that was where all your walls would go up. Um, and one thing I remember, which we know I don't remember much, like verbatim, but you had said, I was like, you're supposed to be open, and you're supposed to be able to be transparent with me. And you looked at me like, just because we're married does not mean I tell you everything. I'm allowed to have secrets too.
I actually do remember saying stuff like that. It's like I'm allowed to have my own thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
And while I still agree there is some truth to
Mm-hmm.
that,
Mm-hmm.
you're an individual. You're still allowed to have your own thoughts and be your own person. It's I guess it's the secrets.
Yeah.
Because what it can turn into, and it's not guaranteed it's going to, which is if I'm always in my own head and I'm always like, hey, leave me and let me have my thoughts, and I don't open up to you, which I work better opening up and having, I am like and I remember I had a girlfriend years ago say this, and it's like, that actually has some truth to it, which is I'm like the Dr. House character. So if you ever watch that show, the Dr. House, when he had his original team of three, yeah, the woman and then the two guys.
Yeah.
Okay. When he had he always he could bounce ideas off of them.
Mm-hmm.
And then, it's like, oh, you're stupid for thinking that. And, because he was a douche and a half. But then
So you're saying you were a douche?
yeah, probably. But I don't, but because I don't care about anybody's opinion, it doesn't bother me. So whatever. And when he lost his team, he didn't lose his team, but and I don't know, because I'm not a doctor, how it works. You'd have to tell me. You worked in medicine, which is after they not internship. What's after they graduate college? They got their PhDs. They're doctors. What do they do? That's residency.
Yes.
Okay, what comes after residency?
I don't know.
Okay, so
I never
and
worked
again,
in a hospital, so I'm not
so
sure.
I have no clue either. So let's just say after residency, characters move on. House is on his own. He's got to build his new team. He's now has trouble figuring out those extraordinary cases because he doesn't have anybody to bounce ideas off of.
Yeah.
I'm the same way, and I kept staying inside my own head, and I wasn't allowing you in. So, and it's not just like business or anything, like just life in general. I wasn't utilizing you as a teammate and a partner to bounce ideas off of, to bounce my life off of, and then get that feedback so I can go and correct myself and make myself better.
I think part of the thing wasn't just, everyone's allowed to have their own thoughts and ideas and struggles. And sometimes you want to bounce ideas off your partner. Sometimes you just want to iron them out in your own head. I know when I'm having a horrible day, sometimes being able to balance them out in my head and then talk to you is a whole lot better because I've been able to iron the woman emotion out of it a lot of times. But more specifically, what I focus on with the you don't have to open up everything was you and I were still attempting to hold our damage away from each other. We didn't want to open up to each other and open that Pandora's box because one, we had to admit we were broken. Two, we had to potentially open our damage to the other person and potentially be judged by them. And then then that creates a area where the other person could potentially hurt us even worse. And I don't think either of us really wanted to. I want to say that in the beginning I kind of did, but you and I both know the beginning wasn't exactly the best part of us. We had a lot of positive things out of it, but we also had a lot of negative. And I feel like instead of the beginning, us cleaning out our closet, so to speak, we actually took time and we put more bricks on top of the damage we already had. So I would say that it wasn't until the last few years where we started, drilling into those bricks and starting to take them down. But by that time they had abscessed and they had, hardened and solidified together. So now there's a lot of damage underneath that now we're having to work out. But there was that fear, especially for me, now that we're taking down these bricks, what additional damage has now accumulated for 13 years that was already there on top of what was already there, and is taking down these bricks going to be harder than if I just left them up? Because the next time that you and I have a little disagreement, is it going to poke those sore spots that haven't seen the light of day in how many years?
And that's something we've slightly addressed before, which is when you start really opening up the communication channels between each other, it's going to get worse before it gets better. Okay. And it may start opening up wounds that the other person doesn't want or didn't think they were ready or thought they were ready to, but they really weren't ready to open up and discuss. And I don't really have advice on that, on how to, other than you got to do it. If you want to save your marriage, you want to save your relationship, you have to start embracing the suck. It's not going to be fun. There's going to be some arguments. You have to set some boundaries and you have to set some guidelines, which is, we may get angry at the situation, but we're not necessarily they're not necessarily angry with each other. And even if it's an old, because we did this in the beginning, it's like, well, you used to do this and you did this and you did this and I did this and no, it was you. And assessing that blame, assigning that blame to the partner is very common, and that's going to happen. And what we've learned is we did that in the beginning, but then towards the end, we were at least intelligent enough and mature enough to realize what we were doing. So at the end of that conversation, we can be like, I apologize for, getting upset and frustrated, and you would say the same thing or something. And we could come together and be like, okay, well, I guess we actually got some shit, ironed out, and we feel a little bit better, and then move on to the next one. And over time, those arguments are less and less and less. And then you really start just diving into and almost becoming each other's counselor and therapist to where it's like, well, I see this. Like you present some type of issue that you're having, and I can say, well, I see it this way, or I see this, or yada yada. We had discussed just earlier today the whole body image thing. You tried go into it's like, yeah, but I look and I feel this way. No, 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 no. Because to me, you're hot as shit. To me, you're very, very sexy. I don't care about the rest of the world because you're my wife. You're not the world's wife. So just listen to what I'm saying. And this is where it goes back to why I wanted to go into this topic of you do need to build up that self-esteem, because you may feel sexy and hot and beautiful and everything because I say these things, and then I appreciate you in a way that shows you that I do believe these words. I'm not just, saying them randomly and they're empty. But you're still going to have moments of doubt.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with me when it comes to trying to be like successful or build a career or something like that, because I've had so much failure. And there are moments I know that I'm better at a lot of the skills that I have than probably 99% of the fuckers on this planet. And and it's not arrogance. And I know it sounds aggressive, but to a point in my world, it's like, no, I have to have that mindset in order to drive through. But there still are days where I don't, it's like, oh man, this happened today. Or all of a sudden you just get in your head and it's like, I don't think it's going to work out. And you come along and you're like, no, 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 it's going to be fine. So, I mean, even though the most successful people on the planet doubt themselves.
I think one of the things when we go back to compliments and things like that is you've mentioned multiple times about uh, complimenting beauties and complimenting, physical looks, because visually as a woman, I would say that, finding my husband still wanting me to be, still having the want for me and finding me attractive is a huge thing. But I would say that me me complimenting you and you accepting the compliment was big for me, because that's one of the thing that thrives me, is to being able to compliment you and let me know that you appreciate it. But I would say that one thing that recharges you is not actually me saying that you're sexy. One thing that I have been trying to do for quite some time now is be able to acknowledge everything that I appreciate you and what you do for the household. And I would say, I can't speak for a lot of people, but I would say for me, that's been the most difficult task, not in finding stuff that I appreciate for you, but for me being able to verbalize it and it not sound out of my mouth awkward. So in my head, I know you're my superhero. I know that you're my protector. The fact that I get lectured about not locking up the house because I know that that's your main concern, is keeping us safe.
Well, yeah, you never know when you're the 1 in 10 million. I mean, there how many ring camera videos I've seen to where it's like it's just a random
Yeah.
crazy person that walks by and then they just happen to walk up on a house and that door is unlocked.
Yeah.
And bad things can happen. And I couldn't live with myself if bad things happen to you guys. So yes, it's everything that I do. I don't do it because I'm paranoid and I'm like if I lived alone. Well, I mean, this is the thing. If I lived alone, these are things that I would do to protect myself.
Yeah.
But now I have you guys. You guys are not me. And again, not to sound arrogant, but I understand that I can be an intimidating person just walking through a grocery store.
Yeah.
And I'm not like trying to be scary and intimidating. It's just people are intimidated
It's the
sometimes.
RBF.
It probably is the RBF. So the thing of it is I have size, I have strength still right now, and I have built up a lot of knowledge and a lot of skills over 27-ish years.
Yeah.
So I'm comfortable and confident in myself. You guys don't have those same, you don't have those same capabilities that I have.
What? I'm super intimidating.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, to a puppy, maybe? maybe not, but that's my whole point. And I don't say that to crap on you guys. It's one of the reasons I really kind of hammer this stuff into our girls, just because, you know, I don't want them to grow up and find themselves in a position to where it's like, man, that's and it can happen. They end up in a bad position, even though they took all the right precautions. They end in a bad position with a bad guy, and they didn't know the guy was bad or something like that. And I don't want them to do that. So I try to train them to, you know, spot these indicators and these outliers. So
Yeah, and it's a lot of those things that make me appreciate you so much. And but again, it goes back to, how do I verbalize that and not sound like a walking cliche? Like, but what I think isn't talked about enough and women don't understand is how much that charges a man, how much you guys are fueled by that, especially with, you know, you not being maybe the head provider of the house for all of these years. That kind of chips away a little bit of your self-esteem. And so being able for me to come home and try and relay to you that, look, you are still the man of the house, and you are still the most important person to me, and you are still the person I run to when I'm having a mental crisis, when the kids are driving me bonkers. I still need daddy to come in and play the card of, you know, authority. And when I come home and work's been struggle, and I'm at my wit's end, the safest place for you or for me is still within your arms. And yeah, you've gotten bigger, and granted, I think you've like doubled in size right here, and I like it. But
well, I mean,
that's my safe space.
to a point, yeah. I mean, obviously, since we've gotten together 13 years ago, it's like, obviously I've gained quite a bit of weight since then, quite a bit of body fat. But in the last year, body fat has decreased, but weight has actually increased. So that lets you know that it is more lean muscle tissue opposed to body fat.
Yeah.
Now let's go over, since we're kind of on this subject of showing appreciation. I think one of the things a lot of people don't know, they don't know how to show appreciation.
Yeah.
And so when I had years ago, I wrote an instructor's manual for my instructors, for my assistant instructors, because one of the things I realized through, I think at the time I had been teaching martial arts or doing it for like teaching 10 years, doing it 12 years, something like that. And it's not that instructors are bad, but there's a lot of bad instructors. And it's not that they're bad, it's they're not good at teaching.
Mm-hmm.
And they have the skill, they have the heart, they have the passion, and they have the drive to teach, and they want to convey that information, but they don't really know how to teach. It's the same thing with these compliments. I don't know how to compliment my wife. I don't know how to compliment my husband.
Mm-hmm.
So,
or how to.
That's what I just said.
Like, no, when I mean to cut that off is where what charges that person. There's a big concept of, you know, love your wife, and then the wife is taught love your husband, but the man's not charged off of love. The man wants to be charged off of respect and admiration.
That's what I was kind of getting to eventually. Yeah, I know.
And I spider web. I'm just saying.
It wasn't spider webbing. It was just, you know,
side quest.
Yeah, I wasn't going Mach 10. I was taking the 1855 locomotive train to get there. So for myself, I'll give a couple examples for women because you had just said sometimes I don't know how to convey that you do all these things, and I don't want it to sound lame or unappreciative or something like that. So for my particular skill sets and abilities, the kind of my number one is obviously being the protector.
I was going to say quoting movies, but yeah.
Well, I can do that very, very well. I think inside my head, I live inside a movie that nobody else is in. But to give a couple examples, so for like myself, you feel protected. letting me know certain things just by, and it's going to sound like a lame example, locking up the house. And it can be something that's like, I actually I know you're paranoid. But it's like, you actually make me feel really safe just by you conveying, because I put so much effort into, I mean, when our girls just go down the street to go hang out with a friend, I it's like I think someone's gonna kidnap them, and it's like I almost feel like I got a helicopter parent, and I'm trying not to helicopter parent because I was a latchkey kid, and I grew up in the '80s in a small town that was mostly still farm field and everything, and I did whatever the hell I wanted. I was a latchkey kid since I was 8 years old. My parents were across town working. I could go wherever I want, do whatever I wanted, and I never once was I ever in any type of trouble or anything like that. And I just don't trust the world today. I really don't. And I have two little girls that, oh my gosh, it would just end my world if something bad happened to them.
Yeah.
So just letting me know that, I appreciate the effort, because you've even said there's been times you guys are out and the girls will tell you to do something because I taught them to do it.
Yeah,
Like,
I'm too free
mom,
spirited. I just
and that works for you, and that's fine. um but it makes me happy when you just come back and you tell me a story. It's like, hey, I got this great little story to tell you. So we were doing X, Y, and Z, and the 11-year-old was teaching me and telling me how to be safe in this respect, and then the 5-year-old was telling me to do this. That's one of the things I started doing with the 5-year-old, the boy, which is letting him know, trying to teach him early on to be a protector. So it's simple things like, plus I know that when he's with me, it doesn't cause any problems. And then when he's with you, you're like, oh, he runs around all the time. So simple things like, hey, when you're with mom, bud, make sure that you're holding her hand and helping her cross the street. So when you're at the grocery store or something like that, hey, when you're with mom, make sure that you're staying with her. So you're watching her. So this way you can keep an eye on her and protect her. Now he's got an assignment, and I know the boy is going to try to complete that assignment, because when he comes home he tells me, oh yeah, I walked mom across the street today. It's like, oh, okay. And I'm not trying to, because you know fucking blue-haired little Karen is going to, and if they have blue hair in their Karen, it's like, it's just an image. But someone is going to be like, well, now you're teaching him that women can't do anything and they have to do it. No, no, I'm not. No, I'm not. I'm teaching my son
I know
that,
plenty
because
of
he's going to be a big
caring
boy.
woman that walks around and they own the place. But you know what? My son can learn how to be a gentleman.
And that is my whole point. And I will get there. He's only 5 right now. I'm trying to just get him to not run away from you and be silly and crazy and run around the store. That's all I'm doing. So I'm not teaching him that you can't do anything. I'm selling him on the idea on why he needs to basically not run away from you and get cat, because he won't pull that crap with me.
Yeah.
And it's not because I'm mean, is I don't have to. He holds my hand or I hold his hand, and we walk across the street and we talk, and he feels safe with me and he tells me. So that's all it is. And then the girls, when you do something and they see something, and you come back and you tell me that. So that's one of the ways. We have a friend who had a carpet cleaning business, and his carpet cleaning business wasn't doing as well a few years ago, and his wife was a breadwinner. And one of the ways that he could feel valued is because his house was always spotless and immaculate. He did a fantastic job. So one of the ways, and she's a great wife. One of the ways that she, as an example, can tell him or convey to him, it's like, man, our house is always beautiful because, or always smells good because, you clean the carpets, or it always looks nice because you do X, Y, and Z. Giving that appreciation. My dad, career mechanic. If my mom would have, growing up, when my dad was working on cars or picking up side jobs with cars or something like that, if she would have went out into the garage, even if he's just doing a simple oil change on her car or something, which she never did, if she would have went out into the garage and thanked him or just sat and talked to him, and a little message like, I really appreciate the little things that you do like this. My car, I am confident my car is always going to run well because you maintain it so well.
Yeah.
That little, that boosts that man's confidence. So whatever your husband does, letting him know that you appreciate that he does it, and then paying some type of compliments. That's all it takes to get started. Now, for women, how do we go about that?
Well, real quick, I'm sorry. I want to go back to one thing that I thought was interesting is with you locking down the house. Is there was a point where you told me like I never locked down the house, and you were very worried that if you would go out of town when you were visiting your son, that I wasn't locking up the house. And one thing I had to relay to you was like, I pay attention to every single day when you lock down the house. I know this, and I make sure it all goes off, and I make sure the alarms, and I make sure everything's good. And you're like, well, why don't you ever do it any other time? And I'm like, because you setting up the house is you're tucking us to bed. I know every single day that house is going to be checked because I know you're going to go down your checklist, and it makes me feel safe. But it wasn't until I relayed that to you that you thought I was just being a slacker and not wanting to do it. And I'm like, no, you tucked us to bed. You came in and you set up the humidifiers, and you went and tucked in the house, and you made everything safe. And I got to know that everything was done.
And that is an excellent point, because for the longest time I didn't. I just thought you were. It's like, dude, do you not give a shit?
No.
It's like, do you want someone slitting your throat in the middle of the fucking night? It's like,
because you're not home. I do it all.
I know that now.
I'll do it twice just to make sure, because I know you're going to look at that security system. Did she do it? And I'm going to be like, look, I did it twice. Is right there just for you. Watch me send a selfie.
The interesting thing is the more frequently I have taken the trips to go visit the boy, I check less and less. I've checked less and less.
Well, now we have
because
an alarm dog.
I'm confident that you were doing it. But you're right. I didn't think that you were valuing it for the longest time. And because there'd be times like I'm trying to go to bed, you're trying to go to bed, we got the kids and yada yada, and then I go down and check the house. You were just downstairs, and then you come upstairs, and then I go downstairs. I'm like, why the hell is everything still open? You were just down here. You can't lock a freaking door. What the hell's your problem?
Because if I go and locked it, what did you do? You go behind and redo it.
I'd go check it anyway.
So I got tired. What was it? I think it was a month or two ago. You were resting your eyes on the couch.
What?
Anyways, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna be nice. He's asleep. You don't wake up and zombie walk to bed. You wake up if you have to do stuff. So I got up and I did all of it. And I told you, hey, I already put the house to bed. Go to bed. You woke up and autopilot started doing it as well. And I was like,
that's not trying to be disrespectful towards you. That was
like,
autopilot. That was autopilot. I was probably half asleep, and I'm like, do this thing, and have not really registered that you had told me, oh, I already took care of everything for you. Now it's different because, again, I've taken so many trips. I know that house is locked up and everything is taken care of. But yeah, I still do it, and I still get paranoid because there have been a few times I've checked and you thought, you shut the garage door. And then garage door is open. I'm like, why has our garage door been open for 3 hours?
The children.
Dude,
so
there are too many people in this freaking neighborhood that, and this is more of kind of a self-defense tip a little bit for anybody watching, which is you want to find out what's going on in your neighborhood. See if your neighborhood has a Facebook group. And then go and watch. And you don't have to respond. I just lurk there and listen to everybody else piss and moan about their lives. But there have been instances here and there where it's like, hey, pay attention to your stuff. There's, this weird looking guy walking around. Oh, my dad today, when he stopped by, he was telling me that just last week, Amazon had dropped off some packages. And right as he went to the door, someone had swiped his packages as he was going to the door to go retrieve them.
It's because you don't have a security camera.
Someone had followed, I guess, the Amazon driver or something like that, and swiped his packages. So it does happen. That's why I don't leave a garage door open either, because it is so easy just to walk in. And I mean, some of these guys got some really nice, expensive tools and equipment in there. It's like, I don't want that stuff taken.
Well, as far as like the unlocking the house is really hard, because while the girls will fight over the pepper spray and who's going to have it, and who's going to protect
That's why I
and
bought them their
whatever.
own. They all have their own now.
But yet, these are the same girls that I will come through and I will lock up the house because we're leaving. And daddy's going to come home, and I know he's going to be judging on how the house is secure. But yet, these Dutches will leave the backslider door open as we're leaving. Like,
30% of home intrusions, home break-ins, happen through the back door.
Yeah.
For that exact same reason, because it's typically unlocked.
mm-hmm.
When I was in junior high school,
Mm-hmm.
we had a friend. So it was like a group of like 4 of us. We all lived within like 4 houses of each other, and we just played basketball with each other every day. And one of our friends, they always left, because in case the kids got locked out on accidents, the parents just left the back door open.
Meanwhile,
They're like,
in
oh,
our house,
we have a dog. It's no big deal. It's like, dude, they can get past your dog easy. Dogs are not a threat to burglars or criminals unless it's a dog our size. So our dog is more of a threat. But if you have like a yippy little dog, those are easy to, with some treats or crumbled bacon or something like that, just lock them into a bathroom or
stomp your feet too hard.
Yes, a lot. It's the funny thing is I see so many people talk about, well, I have a dog. I got a big Rottweiler. It's like, so have you trained your dog? No. So your dog is, because most Rottweilers I've ever met, they're just the sweetest, laziest
babies.
lumps. They're big giant babies. And they're just lazy too. They are not, unless you train them to be athletic dogs, and unless you're training them to be an attack dog and encourage that. No, your Rottweilers they may bark, but you start throwing some treats at them. But that's the thing. So statistically, criminals, they really actually don't like messing with big dogs because they don't know. It's like, well, just in case. But your little, yippy chihuahuas and Maltipoos and stuff like that, some treats in a bedroom, in a bathroom, in a closet, something like that. And it's like they go away, and then you can go through the house.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that's how to compliment a guy. Find out basically what he does, what he's doing for you, and then let him know. So again, it gave the compliments like, letting me know that he feels safe, or, the guy who works on the cards, letting him know that you appreciate that. You're confident that that car is always going to work because he maintains it and take care of it. And the thing of it is, you give him that one compliment, you're going to start finding that he's going to take even better care of your car.
And make sure it's real too. Don't come up with fake compliments.
So that was, I had started telling it earlier. So when I had written a instructor's manual many years ago, one of the lessons in there, I titled Gold Digger. And the reason being is because when you're mining for gold, you're chiseling and chiseling, chisel away, and you're going to hit a lot of rock, and you're not going to hit very much gold. You have to find the gold. So it's the same thing in paying someone a compliment, which is I have to find it. Now, it needs to be genuine. Mm-hmm. It can't be a bullshit compliment. Like, it's like, hey, I really like your eyebrows today. It's like, number one, who gives a shit?
Maybe I did them. How do you know?
Maybe you did them. That's fine.
Like if I come up to you and be like, are they even? You'd be like, I don't give a shit. No. Do they look good or not? Do I need to fix them? Just tell me. I need to be honest.
Yeah, and for me personally, it's like I really don't know anything about eyebrows, so so how I let you down easy. It's like I would just let you know. It's like I'm really the wrong person to ask. I don't know. They look good to me, but I don't know what that's supposed to mean. So yeah, it does. It has to be a genuine compliment. It has to be a genuine show of appreciation. It can't just be like, I like your dress today. It's like whatever. And it can't be, I mean, unless you have that type of relationship, it can't always be vulgar. And it's like, hey, the girls are looking good today. And it's like,
I walked down the stairs today and you were very distracted by me walking down the stairs, and then you had to compliment my boobies. I don't understand what the complaint is on the girls look good today. I like the compliment.
Well, what I'm saying is it can't always be that. Oh. And it can't always be like if I were, because you and I are at a point where I can make those jokes, and it's between us, it's funny and sexy. But to someone who's maybe not at that, who's at a beginning stage of paying compliments and developing their communication with their partner, those compliments can come off just like vulgar.
Yeah.
And it's like, is that all you see me as? It's like I'm just a pair of tits or something like that, or it's like, you do have to pay compliments other than, the compliments a 15-year-old would freaking pay or something like that. If you sound like a 16-year-old all the time, then, your wife's probably not going to, respect you because you sound like a freaking retard. So once you get to that level, then you can say whatever the hell you want.
We've earned it.
Yeah, that's exactly it. We've earned it. We've earned that level of vulgarity between each other. So, there are some couples who could get away with it just because that's their personality. But if you're not that personality type, then, don't just do that. So, give her, and even if you are, give her a genuine compliment anyways,
Yeah.
and see it go so far. So now it's your turn. I need examples. Guys, men need examples on how to pay compliments to women. So with men, again, like we had discussed, it is, show appreciation for the stuff that he does and how we make you feel. What kind of things do you think women, or ways conceptually that women want to receive compliments?
For me, it's a little hard because a lot of times you do it without even me thinking about it. So you understand the compliment aspect now that we're in a good place, a little bit more natural. Um, you do a lot of, this is really hard for me to think about.
Well, for me, it's a little easier just because, and I can understand your struggle, but remember, it's like I taught martial arts for so long. I had to, because if I didn't help to build up that student's self esteem, because I had a lot of students come in and just think they suck all the time. It's like, how bad I sucked when I started. It's like, I wasn't this awesome when I started. I was terrible. I was probably the worst one in the class, and eventually, over a long enough timeline, it just everybody else left, and I eventually got good. But yeah.
I think it's hard because when you focus on the book, seven languages of love, you understand how your partner works and how they, what fuels them. Um, so I focused so much on how to fix our relationship because I was trying to be so dominant and run the house and try and um, fix things that I thought were broken so you didn't have to add extra stress, thinking I was going to help things, that for so long I just kind of gave up on what I needed for me. So it's really hard to sit here and say, you know, what fueled me because I didn't think about it for a really long time. It was what the kids needed and what you needed. And not to say that any of that was your fault. It was just the way I was compensating for things. Um, Growing up, my dad used to always joke that I was his secretary. He was a single father. And um, I just naturally became the mother of the family. So I think into the marriage with you, when we started getting into not good places, I compensated a lot for things. Now, even 13 years of marriage and in the bad places we've been, never once were you like the person that didn't do the trashes or didn't do the dog poop or didn't help out with the kids, or there was never a time where I could be one of those wives that are like, my husband just sat on his ass all day and did nothing. Like, we've always shared the household work. We've always shared the cooking and the shopping. And sometimes you've done more shopping than I have because, I like to swipe, swipe, swipe. Um, but when you're asking, from the woman perspective, I think the biggest thing is just the husband to find his wife's cracks. And
How do you mean?
like,
Because that can be interpreted as like, you want me to find your flaws.
know where we view our flaws are. So,
So,
for example, how many times I've come home and the kids used to make jokes about this all the time about how it's mom's money. And I kept telling them I don't want to hear those jokes. Because in reality, while I enjoy what I do and I enjoy being a professional and I enjoy being at work. I've loved innovating. I like being in management. There is a part of me that really enjoys that. As you and I have become closer over the years, I just by the end of the day, I come home and I just miss being a wife and miss being a mother. There's a taboo in the workforce for women that you're either a shitty mom because you go to work, or you're a shitty mom because you stay home and you're lazy. So there's this internal struggle. So you almost have to find, when I say the cracks, like where is your wife starting to crack? Where is she having her issues? Because maybe she's a stay-at-home mom and she absolutely loves to be a stay-at-home mom. But why should she have to be all pretty and dress up for her husband that's coming home? Because, you know, why should she have to dress up? She's not going anywhere. He's not going to take her out to dinner, kind of thing. But she's, it's been 2 or 3 days and she's sitting with the baby and she's got throw up on her. And she's trying to keep up everything, but she just feels gross. And, a simple walk up, and even with throw up down her shirt, the husband can grab her face and be like, you're still beautiful. Or my beautiful mother of my kids, or something like that. So the woman doesn't feel like she's a failure. Even though she's trying her hardest, or maybe she's in depression, maybe she's given up, that husband to take aside the fact that maybe she didn't have dinner ready. Maybe the house looks like a mess. Maybe the kids are fucking chaotic. Where is that woman missing part of her soul? What's incomplete about her? If all that kind of makes sense.
It does, but
it's very woman explained, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm trying to process to figure it out, and what I'm kind of interpreting is so like I had mentioned, for the men, it is find out what he does and show appreciation for those actions, because we show our love through actions.
Yeah.
Women do as well. But the compliments aren't necessarily the same, which is, obviously it's like, yeah, man, dinner was like really good tonight. It's like, I like, I do that. It's like,
I like compliments that I cooked a good meal.
Yes, everybody likes that.
If I sit down and I made dinner and nobody freaking likes it, that kills me, because I just spent an hour making dinner and nobody's grateful for it. Or if I sit in the kitchen by myself and nobody helps me make dinner, then they complain about the dinner, and then I'm the one cleaning up after dinner. That absolutely kills me. Like, I like our time that we go and we clean up afterwards, but sometimes just sitting in the kitchen by yourself with no one else and then dinner's not good enough, that's a crack.
Oh, I can see that eating away at somebody. Yeah. Me personally, like, fuck you guys, I got leftovers for tomorrow. I don't give a shit.
You're like, you don't like it?
You didn't like
more for me.
More for me tomorrow.
Spaghetti. You're like, oh God, she made spaghetti.
That's why we don't make spaghetti that often. The spaghetti, no. If it's like if the teenager makes her homemade meatballs, then
or her chicken parmesan.
Yeah, her chicken parmesan's pretty good. I'll eat those. There won't be leftovers, but yeah. Just anyways, that is, and I get back to my interpretation. That is for men to understand a good place to start. If you do not know how to compliment your wife, start with simple things like, you come home and, man, the house actually looks really good today. You did a good job. Your laundry's done for you. This is something I see with I see it with women a lot, whether stay at home or full-time workers. It pisses me off. And part of it is almost like, I try to stay as masculine as possible, I guess. But because I've been a stay-at-home dad, like a majority of the time, even though I've had like studios in the evening time, I'm still a stay-at-home dad during the day, and then I go do martial arts in the evening time. I can understand kind of like why some of these women feel the way that they do.
Yeah.
Not that you've ever like come home.
Never-ending laundry isn't fun.
Yeah, the kids are old enough; they can do their own damn laundry. I ain't doing that for them. Come on, that's one of the things, and that's a whole another sub. We'll get into parenting some other episode, but finding simple compliments like that. Your laundry is done. Thank your wife and compliment her for doing your damn laundry. Not because she has to, not because this whole, because I've seen women rebel and it's like, I only handle me and the kids and he handles all his own shit. It's like, well, you're a crappy wife then. And there's been
Well,
trending videos that
I'll
have
say
gone
that
viral because of that.
if
So
that's a mutual discussion, for example, like maybe the husband is, construction worker kind of
no,
thing.
I'm sorry. I'm not gonna try to cut you off, but I'm gonna cut you off anyways on that one because all the examples I've ever seen, it's not a mutual discussion.
Okay.
He is responsible for taking care of himself because she absolutely refuses. Because as we discussed in a previous episode, I'm not gonna mom him. I am a wife and I am a mom, and I take care of the kids, and he takes care of himself, and he takes care of us. Like, I don't know if you guys got if that's some cultural thing that I don't know about. I don't want to be a part of your fucking culture. If that's, I don't want to know that kind of love because that just for me that just sucks. Just just eat me away or something like that because I gotta bust my butt all day and to a family that's not grateful. It's now, anyways. Getting off my high horse here. Finding compliments. Your laundry's done. Your dinner's done. The house is clean. The kids' homework is done. The kids got taken to and from their extracurricular activities. The grocery shopping was done. Whatever you can find to start off with, start acting like a fucking leader because that's what a man's supposed to be. You want to be a man. You want to act like a man. You want to be treated like a man. You want to think you talk like a man. You want to try to be tough like a man. Then act like a fucking man and be a leader because that's what men are supposed to do, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And if you're not complimenting your wife, then I'm wondering what kind of job you have and how you treat other people at your job. Because if you have this, douchebag, knuckle dragon, lowbrow, smooth brain mindset to where you go to work and I bust my butt and it's like we give each other shit, but it's like, okay, but do you help each other? How are you actually growing? I don't care if you're in the trades. I don't care if you're in management. I don't care if it's white collar, blue collar. I don't care. And this is a whole kind of another like side thing, but for men, you still, even when you're out in the world, need to be some type of leader.
Yeah.
I don't care if I'm working but shoot, I could work at your job and I could be the lowest guy on the totem pole. I'm still going to act like a leader. Because there you go. I'm still going to act like a leader and I'm still going to treat people the way that I do by paying them compliments because that's going to elevate me and that's going to get my management to get to know who I am. Now, some guys don't want to do that and they just want to put in their 40 and go home, and that's fine. Fuck those guys. I don't care. But they're not the types either to go home and pay their wives compliments. They're not leaders. So and I know I sound very aggressive and probably really shitty and douchey and stuff right now. I don't care. Um, Find something to pay your wife and your kids compliments. So like I said, we'll get into parenting, but you got to find something. Your wife looks good. I don't know. She bought a new pair of yoga pants or something like that. Smack her on the backside and tell her she looks good or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. Find something simple. Now, going back to my interpretation of what you were saying, I'm kind of understanding the whole cracks thing. Listening to what you're saying, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like it's not so much the simple compliments like I just described, but complimenting and showing appreciation for who you are as a person.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of women, they beat themselves up about not being a good wife, not being a good mom.
Yeah.
And it is the husband's job to reinforce that the woman is a good wife and she is a good mom. And when you look at it from that perspective, you'll find those cracks that you're talking about and those places where you doubt yourself. And then you can come in and let her know. It's like, no, you're doing awesome at that. How many times that you've thought because, you've had a project because you work in management. And sometimes you got a project that's like, I have to work extra. I can't be at home and yada, yada. Like, was it this last week or the week before? I was driving around like crazy all over town with all these appointments and, the kids doing all their extracurricular activities and, this girl here having some sickness issues and stuff like that,
Yeah.
and you felt guilty because I was doing all this stuff. I'm like, it's fine, don't worry about it. It's like, yeah, but I feel like a crappy mom. It's like, you're not a crappy mom. You will be there for the girls the next time you get an opportunity, because you're not the type to where you're just going to work, 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 work. And it's like the 40 hours turns into the 50, turns into the 60, turns into the 70, turns into, hey, haven't seen you this month. Where the hell are you?
Yeah.
And, I got a pool boy or something like that, and we don't even have a pool. And,
I think one of the things to slightly narrow it in is just feeling like your husband thinks you're good enough and that you are valued in the house. I know some of the times that I've had, probably my biggest cracks is, when you're going to work and you feel like to your boss you're not good enough. And then you have employees or other departments that aren't complaining or are complaining about things or are not complimenting. And for me personally, I can't speak for every woman because I'm not every woman, but for me, I strive off of those successes, those positive reinforcements. So you have manager doesn't compliment you, other departments aren't thanking you, employees aren't showing appreciation for you, no matter how much I bend over backwards, to make sure that their needs are met. Then you're coming home and dogs trying to die, and kids are being teenagers and preteens, and then you're at your thinnest, at your wits end, and you come home and you want to feel more like a wife. So I tell you I'm going to make dinner because I just want to be dinner. And then the kids are complaining because the dinner isn't up to their par. And then it's just not good enough, not good enough, not good enough, not good enough. By the end of the week, I just come to you and I'm just like one little thread away from just falling apart. And you just give me a hug and just tell me thank you, or just tell me it's okay, or just tell me it'll be fine, kind of thing. That's the cracks that turn into the Grand Canyon in a marriage, is just where no matter whether you're the stay-at-home parent and you're trying to deal with the screaming children and you're trying to keep the house from falling apart and you're trying to, that the finances are tight and your job is to pay for everything at home. For you have this like $300 budget and you have to make it stretch. And I've seen this clip. I forget who it was. It's the cheeseburger, Terry Crews. He played in it with his wife. I forget who it was, but he's like, why aren't you paying the bills on time? And she's like, you don't understand, the budget you have for these food budgets is just not enough. So if she doesn't communicate that to him, because she doesn't want to hurt his pride that he doesn't make enough money, but yet, people are complaining because we have the same food every day, or, this is not what I want or whatever. And you just start getting those cracks. And woman just doesn't want to verbalize it to her husband because she doesn't want to have to tell him that she's falling apart,
mm-hmm.
because she feels he's going to take it internal.
Yeah. Man, something like that. So the position that you're in, I can empathize with, just because I've had some, very I don't say powerful women, but very take charge, leader, powerful women, people who are career driven and quite successful in my gyms. And the interesting thing is, and I remember one of them at a specific conversation, because I could tell that she wasn't doing that well. And it was like after class, like, hey, you doing okay? You seem like you're a little bit down or maybe distracted. Are you tired? I usually go for, it's like, are you tired? Did you get enough water? It's like, did you eat enough today? Or it's, are you super busy at work or something like that? And then unloading something that it's like, well, my employees, and then I still have a boss and yada yada. And
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, that's got to be tough. And then you go home and the husband expects X, Y, and Z. And her comment was, and I'm paraphrasing. Um, she had said something to the effect of, I do all these things and I'm in charge of this company, but like you said before, her comment specific was, I'm still a woman and I
Yeah.
still want to feel like a woman. And sometimes in my world, I don't get that.
Yeah.
And that was like, oh wow, that's interesting. It's like, because a man can look at a woman by like that and it's like, man, she's a bad bitch. Like
Yeah.
she's in charge and people listen to her and they respect her and she has a good income and like drives a nice car, a nice house. Everything looks good on the outside, but that's me looking from the male's perspective. Because if I was looking at another man, it's like that's someone to kind of like look up to and almost mentor under. But and maybe the men feels that way, I don't know. But for the woman, like this particular woman, she's like kind of the same thing you said. It's like, sometimes I just want to feel like a woman. Sometimes I just want to be a housewife and I just want to stay home and hang out with my kids or something like that
Yeah.
for that day and let the husband go off and do that. So
And there was an interview one time with I forget the name, but she was the CEO of a major like 500 Fortune 500 company, and she talked about how every single day she has to make these huge decisions. She's got to run her company. She has to have this panache. Women in business, you have to be almost borderline bitch to be able to handle a lot of these men, because men are naturally just very vicious creatures, honestly, when it comes to business.
it is. It's like lions. They can be very cutthroat.
Yeah.
And it's always been interesting to someone like myself who has spent so much time busy building up. I don't look like it today, but physical
Yeah.
capabilities, and then look at someone's like, I'm the CEO of whatever, and I'm worth X amount of dollars. It's like, yeah, but in under 60 seconds, I can make you not exist. You're not that tough.
Yeah.
So, but they act tough inside the boardroom. So it's just weird to someone like me. I don't get it. So
But you have this big persona you have to wear during the day, and maybe you're good at it, maybe you're not, but then you have to come home and you have to learn how to submit to somebody who may or may not be that same um, level. Now, one benefit I have with you, I think, is because you have that more aggressive personality. You have that more dominant personality. We've had this conversation. In my opinion, you walk into a room and there is a that alpha energy that walks in the room. Now, some people have it, some people don't. Um, People that don't know you say that you're pretty put off, you're pretty standoffish, you're very aggressive by nature.
it's my Sigma personality.
Oh my God. But for me, it works because one issue I've always had in prior relationships is, single father of 4 kids. There was no softness. My mom, even with being my mom, was not a soft personality. We've always just been a very strong-willed women, working women, manager women. The sweet, soft, submissive thing was never a concept I learned how to do. And I know that became a breaking point in our marriage a few years ago, was the fact that there was a checklist and it needed to get done, and it needed to get done yesterday. And if you
Yeah.
were in my way, I was going to run you over.
That actually did become a problem, and there were times I had to remind you. It's like, I'm not your employee.
Yeah.
You're not at work. Your checklist doesn't really mean anything. If we can do some of these things later, they don't really matter that much. And again, I'm not your employee.
But being able to go from that boss mentality and then coming home and understanding that it's okay that I fell apart at home, understanding that it was a safe place for me to not always have to get that checklist done and run the house, and coming to you that it was like the visual compliments is really nice, but knowing that I am more valuable than just my pocketbook, or knowing I'm more valuable because I birthed your children. I'm more valuable, especially when I was nursing. How many times with our youngest, I remember on maternity leave, I was having a hard time with it because I remember I came in one day and because we 100% nursed him, it was pump, 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 nurse, 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 pump, 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 pump. And I remember you walked in one day and I was crying on the bed. because I was like, I feel like a cow. There's every opportunity at that point in time where you could have looked at me and been like, you just birthed a baby. What are you complaining about? But in reality, at that point in time, it's you are more than just your body at that point in time.
Yeah.
Hey, you're sexy is probably not a good option at that time because sexy equals sex
No.
at that point.
Again, and it's finding, like you said, it's finding the crack.
Mm-hmm.
And your crack was, I feel like I am just this physical being
Yeah.
because it's under construction now.
Yeah.
I just gave birth, and now I have this baby.
Obligation.
Yeah, I have this obligation to this child to feed them and to give them nourishment and life based off of my body.
Yeah.
And you did, because he ate so much, you started feeling used, if you will.
Yeah.
So the crack is not like, oh, you're still sexy to me. That's the wrong compliment.
Yeah.
And yeah, that would have been like misreading the room. It's like, no, you're so much more. It's like, this child feels loved because of you. This child is connected because of you. This child is breathing and has life because of you. You know, it's like everything about, again, who you are as a person. That's why I was saying my interpretation, the way I'm looking at it is, or translating it is, finding out who you are as a person and complementing that.
Yeah.
So in that particular instance, when you're crying because you just feel, like a dairy cow, is, yeah, figuring out, again, that crack as a mother and giving you a compliment, and then filling it in and healing that, so you didn't feel like you were just being used. Like, no, you're so much more to me and to this child, to this baby now, than just nursing.
Yeah.
Yes, he's eating a lot, and yes, you are providing for him, but he also is looking at you a certain way, and he's snuggling with you a certain way. It's like he feels you are providing him the love that he needs, because that's what babies need. They don't just need milk, they need love.
Yeah.
Or else they're going to their soul is going to shrivel up and die. So
I think one of the other points that's also important, and you hear it a lot, is men wanting to compliment their wives for more than just the goal of getting sex.
Yeah.
Being able to just hold your spouse and what you do to me and you rub my cheek kind of thing, and just being able to know that maybe we have a makeout session and it's not for the purpose of getting laid. It's for the purpose of being able to intimately connect for the time that we have available. And honestly, in my opinion, for me to soften, because I have to be so hard on a day-to-day basis, you being able to just sit there and give me kisses, and it just melts me and it turns me into a person that can more easily submit and fall under your protection of the household versus trying to pull you along in my agenda. I think that's one of the things that's I've learned over the last year, is that I can help run the household by walking next to you instead of dragging you along. And I think that's one thing that I'm still trying to learn. We're getting there, but
oh yeah. And that's a tip I would recommend to men, which is hug your wife, hold your wife, kiss your wife without the intention of having sex later.
the steak is still nice.
Well, I mean, yeah. But you can't have the ulterior motive,
Yeah.
because then what it does is it taints the actions performed. So you have to go into it. It's like, I'm just going to show you love. I'm going to gently show you love by hugging you, holding you, embracing you, and kissing you, and looking into your eyes or something like that. That's it.
Because it creates a safety net for us to be able to crack that door a little bit.
Mhm.
Like, how many times before where there was an interest on that, And you not asking actually was more interesting than, and I was more willing than if you would have come back and be like, oh, am I going to have some tonight kind of thing. It was like just softening me up actually turned my interest more. Like there was more chances you were going to get some by just not trying to get some, if that makes any
No, it
sense.
makes perfect sense. I mean, and it's just something that I don't know how to phrase this. The the boy is, and there's nothing wrong with asking, but the boy in the relationship has to ask,
Mm-hmm.
has to um make innuendos, has to do all these. He has to try to get laid. The
Yeah.
man in the relationship gets laid. Doesn't, I don't have to try. It's going to happen. And it's not because I said so. It's because I have
Because I
this.
want to.
Yeah, because you want to.
It's
But
that bad guy persona almost like like they a man groveling is not sexy.
no.
At all. But a man that's going to take me in, like you've seen the thing lately where the woman says, "Oh, you have to put your hand over me," and then you tower over me, and you see this woman just slink down,
Mm-hmm.
like haha, like all hot and heavy. That's literally the whole idea of the intimacy and the idea of submission is when the man doesn't dominate because he can, he dominates because his energy says so. The woman instantly softens and she turns into this submissive woman that just wants to be taken, kind of thing. Like,
Yeah, and that's something that a lot of guys are struggling with. They don't know how to be that guy.
yeah.
So they try hard to be that guy, and when you're trying to be that guy, you're not that guy.
And I challenge women too that if the man doesn't feel like he has the availability to be the man of the house, is not straight out and ask him like, why aren't you being the man of the house, because that in and of itself is debilitating, but to try and figure out if you're part of the problem. I know one of the main things that it took me forever to figure out was my part in the issues we were having. Now, I was not the total issue. You were not the total issue. It was a joint effort of us being able to understand the other person. But am I telling him what to do? Am I overstepping in parenting, overstepping in finances, overstepping in decision making? Am I trying to boss him around and tell him what to do? Now, on the flip side, I can 100% understand a woman getting frustrated because the man won't help out with housework. You and I have never done the I go to work and you do everything. Now, we have bouts where, it's stressful, high projects, high stress, um, those types of things. And you pick up, like last week, you did almost all of the back and forth to school, like almost all of it, with the dog and the vet issues and all the stuff that we had to go through last week. It was really hard for me not to want to kick in and go overdrive. And how many times you had to look at me and like, I got it. I got it. Just relax. You already have enough stress going on.
Huh?
So, but you being able to be conscious of your part in the issues and trying to figure out where your husband needs that boost. So,
Yeah. So to I think to recap and to kind of close out, um, start paying your spouse some compliments.
yeah.
Start off with simple things. Whatever, you got to find something that has to be genuine. Start paying compliments because you're gonna boost their self-esteem. I wrote a whole list. Um, it is going to. I mean, it helps you guys strengthen your own emotional connection. Um, because now you're gonna feel valued.
Yeah.
Builds your self-esteem, obviously. Boosts, encourages positivity. Because I wrote a whole blog article to go along with this episode to post. So improving communication, that's one of the things. You guys are struggling to talk to each other. It's like, oh, we're not really talking. So start paying them compliments.
Yeah.
Basically start being nice and start being positive. It's going to foster trust and security. It's like it's going to reinforce good behavior. By and encourage your spouse to continue on the behaviors that they're doing. So that's why it's like, well, how does it encourage good behavior? And I'm not talking about like good behavior like your kids. What I'm talking about is, like I had given the example earlier, if my mom would have went out and she would have given my dad a compliment about taking care of the car. My mom's car never had any issues because my dad made sure he took care of that for her.
Mm-hmm.
Now he had to work on his truck. He had an old beat up 30-year-old truck and she always drove the new car. And he had to work on his. And I don't ever recall, maybe in private, I don't know. Maybe it was different in private. I highly doubt it because I know my parents. But she never said thank you. She never, paid him any compliments for, taking care of it. And if she would have done that, he would have done even more. That's what I'm saying. And so even if you don't have the best car and your man, takes care of your car, change your oil, make sure that the fluids are up, make sure the windshield wipers are good. So he'll go that extra mile to make sure that your car is running absolutely perfect because he doesn't want you breaking down. He'll start putting gas in it. He'll start doing all this other stuff in it because he'll say, oh, my tires were rotated and the air's in the tires, like absolutely perfect. And it's a nice ride. And he'll go out of his way. You hear so many people talk about appreciate and value your man and he will move mountains for you. And it's true. He will do whatever he can to try to change the world to make you more comfortable.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean by like good behavior. It's like you pay him a compliment for one little thing, and by tomorrow, the next week, he's going to do it tenfold. He's going to do an even better job. So, and then yeah.
Tell your husband he's your superhero and see how excited he gets.
Oh yeah. And my our kids tell me stuff like that, and I see it, the way that they respond, the way they act to me, and it makes me feel powerful today. And it's like, my downside is I know it's like one day I'm not going to be as strong. I'm not going to be as much of a superhero.
One day our son will actually beat you at arm wrestling.
One day, and he won't have to use two hands.
Maybe your older one can beat you at arm wrestling. We'll see.
No. He's not that strong, and I'm not that old, so I still win. So you'll see this in kind of like those YouTube motivation videos. What is it? It's something to the effect of, you didn't realize it until your dad was gone that your dad was the one person on this planet who was rooting for you to be better than him.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things. So I push myself with like knowledge and skills and all this other type of thing because I want my kids to be better than me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not because of my legacy, or I don't give a crap about that. I just want them to not have to struggle half as much in their life as maybe I have struggled in mine, or my dad before me struggled in his, and so on down the line.
Yeah.
So they are successful and they are happy and they're confident and they're strong and, progress the family line along further. So
yeah.
Starts with paying compliments.